Good afternoon. All the fun, short second meetings are over now. Back to no. Let's try these. Okay, we're going to have a look at some prophecy, and it's to do with Isaiah and the land of Egypt, declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times of things that are not yet done. The Lord's in control. That's really what we're looking at. If we can get this to work. So the plan really is to show sort of we know the basic background of Egypt and the Bible, the relationship with the Egyptians and the Israelites, right back from the very beginning, and how that interaction works. And that's really where we can sort of learn various things from as well. So Egypt. This one was. So it means the land of the Copts. The country occupies northeast of Africa, and it's always been, very nearly the same for thousands of years. Empires that lasted thousands of years. So as we go through the scriptures, I say, who would you back? Someone that's been there for a good few thousand years, or someone that's been there from the beginning of creation? That's really, the Egyptians, as big as they are, they're not the living God, and the Lord compares himself in that sense with them. It's a huge place, and the delta really extends 200 miles along the Mediterranean. And we can see we're going to look at places from Aswan, Luxor, all the way up here, that it would, every year we know it would just flood, it would silt the ground, and and all the crops would grow from there. So probably now over 83 million, 90% Muslim, 90% Coptic Christians, 30% illiterate. This was not sure exactly what they are now because of the Arab Spring and the keeping of records and that kind of thing. Gained, Revolution Day, 1952. It was then a military state under Mubarak for quite a few years. I remember listening on the BBC for like a 10-part series on Mubarak and how he controlled everything within Egypt, and then obviously that the Arab Spring that all broke up. It's also known because of its place in North Africa for refugees coming backwards and forwards as well, and for trafficking of people, and for the pyramid and all those sorts of things as well. The pyramid's an interesting one in the fact that you think it's out in the desert, and I remember pulling up in front of it on a coach thinking it's just there. I thought it was going to be miles away, and I wondered why it was so cheap, because 2 years later 2 busloads of tourists were killed on that spot really. So it's still, it was a dangerous place. Obviously these days now I think it's quite safe. Goshi's husband's there. A friend of mine, he goes there each year. So scripturally, this is driving me. I'm going to have to do it all from memory. So yeah, the name Egypt in the Bible is Mizraim, signifies red mud. There's also it's quite a popular music as well called Mizrahi, sort of a blend of Israeli Egypt type music as well, which is quite popular, and that's where that word red mud. Egypt is called the Bible land of Ham, written in hieroglyphs as Kem, and that we could go down that road of some very interesting history there as well. Means black on account of the blackness and the richness of the soil. So we're seeing somewhere that's been going for thousands of years. It's rich, it's prosperous, it's really doing well. Can also mean twofold Egypt, meaning like two distresses, because you have northern Egypt and southern Egypt, upper and lower. So the scriptures use that terminology as well. Can't find any of them now. If I throw this, who was talking about anger today? Used to work with somebody who walked up to his computer one day and just punched a hole in the monitor and then left for the day. Not that I'm going to do that now, obviously. Oh, where's it? It's got a mind of its own. So yeah, this is, we'll move forward on there. When we look at Egypt as well, we're also looking at the Assyrians as well. The Assyrians, the Babylonians, it's like a crossroad. The times we're going to look at initially as a background, really, like a crossroads in history, sort of the 700 BC, where you've got the Assyrians, the Babylonians, the Israel, and you've got the northern and the southern tribes, and all they're coming together, and the Lord's putting his word in the midst of all of that. And it's, should we go with Egypt? One goes with Egypt, one goes behind the back, and it's just... That's why when we read, Chronicles, the Kings, and Isaiah and Jeremiah, all of these things, and Daniel, it's quite a complex thing, really. But it's a joy to get into it and find out various things within it. The Assyrians were brutal, as we saw a few weeks ago in the British Museum. This is... It just won't work. Right, we're going to talk about the Aswan Dam. We're going to talk about whatever the computer wants us to talk about, I think. But man has always wanted to control the floods, harness the power of nature, and it wasn't this sort of on this scale wasn't possible till the 19th century, really, to dam up, to come up with all these plans. And one of the resulting ones was to dam up this thing that's been going for thousands of years, and man stops it, if you like, with his wisdom. And one thing about consequences is it doesn't matter what your good intentions are, the consequences will often come, regardless. The British in 1882, 1889, they and then sort of later on down the line, they had a smaller dam, and they'd come up with a plan to allow the Nile to still flood, to still constantly flood, so you get some of the silt. And as we'll see, the Egyptians didn't quite go down that road. So the low dam initially was commissioned to relieve the flooding and produce electricity and allow some of the silt through. Egypt would have still had full control, but they would have been subject to Britain at the time. And the single dam could be completed in about 10 years rather than the 20 that the high dam took. And what's interesting is the correlation between who do you go with, Assyria, Babylon, which nation do you go with? And Egypt had the same choice around that sort of time as well. Who were they going to side with? And they sided with Russia in the end. The highest population density in the world. So I'm going to have to search through now for each slide that's made its own way. So, nationalism. Nasser Hussein, I'm sure you've read that by now, is a very interesting character, and he inspired many other leaders that came after him. And when you read about his relationship with America and with Israel, it's quite interesting. And he was the one that started off the wars and the 6 Day War on the offence as well. And he was saying one thing on the one side in Arabic, on the radios on the other side. It's an interesting thing, but it was different to Islam in that sense. And he was the man in charge at that time. We've had that one. These are really... So this is the dam, and there's a monument on there. These have changed. It's like somebody's got all my slides and just got a deck of cards and just thrown them all out across it. So it's like 52 card pickup. So I'm going to give you the pieces. You put them together, and you can just see the scale of it. It's absolutely huge. This is part of it. so to allow some of it through, to control the waters back and forth, and ultimately that's what it came down to control. It was 43 million cubic square meters cubed of material. 7 great pyramids had gone into it, and it's a huge feat of engineering, and it had $550 million at the time from Egypt, 400 million from private investors, and then another 400 from the UK, the US, and the World Bank. So it cost an absolute fortune. And the reason why I put this one up is because this is the Baluat Gates that we saw a few weeks ago, and this is to put Isaiah. We're going to look at Isaiah chapter 19, and to put Isaiah 19 in its context is in Assyria. We're going to sort of look at the pattern again and again, but this is the Assyrians of what they were doing to the people, to the captives. Get rid of that one. Sunday afternoon, don't want to be seeing the Assyrians. And it talks of a cruel master. So at the time, the Lord said, I'm going to hand you over to a cruel master, a cruel Lord and a fierce king shall rule over them, says the Lord of hosts. So Isaiah 19 is where we're going to start, where they chose Russia to look after them, to build the dam. In the times of Assyria, they chose, some of the tribes there, they chose Assyria, the people that were going to do that to you. Absolutely incredible, really. Cruel master. And they won't go through all the details, but it's a very interesting part of that history of the crossroads and who do you go with. Tell you what. So just one back. Egypt negotiated arms with Russia 3 times the size of the original deal they had, also linked as well with China as well. So they had a massive backing from the east, and then the United States, they then withdrew, and Russia were able to. And there is a monument on there. If you go up there, there's a monument to and that huge monument and other plaques, really sort of giving thanks really to Russia. It was also the Russians getting into, it means stiff-necked, fierce, greedy and powerful, and then having control over the area. That's what the Assyrians were able to do, and that's what Russia was then able to sort of have a bit of control there with the money. The scriptures tell us to be careful who you lend money from, because it's like, and bribes and those sorts of things, because then you're obligated to them. And this is Nasser and Khrushchev. They divert the Nile at this stage, divert and all looks well at this point. Everything's going well, lots of money, but everyone's throwing the money in. They're building it. It's a great engineering project. And what we're going to see then is correlation between the scriptures and between the consequences. Trying to go through the commemorative coins that were there at the time. It was a huge thing for the country, and Egypt is coming off the back of great the empires, if you like, and we'll see that was quite a big turning point for them. Where's it gone? So, the burden of Egypt. Behold, the Lord rides upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt. The idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it. We're going to look at how the idols were moved literally at the involvement of the Lord. That's what we're looking for. Again, we can make up our own mind, just to throw the facts out there. And put this one up there just to show the scale of people. And when you walk up there, a bit like the Assyrians, you walk along that part there, and there's chain gangs of people, the captives that they're taking in. There's an artist's impression, and you've got the two temples here. Just to think of the size. Another one. So this is now a man-made, the man-made island is huge. Bit of drama. And it took 4 years, funded and coordinated by UNESCO, to move all the temples that were there from 1,270, one of them built by Ramesses in his honour. 3,000 years they've been there, and they were moved at this point, all moved up and backwards, moved out the way. Abu Simbal, the one we're going to look at, the big one, that's the one that was moved 64 metres higher and 200 metres backwards. They cut it into small blocks, chopped it all up, numbered them, and then moved it, which is an incredible thing. There's other things that we could look at from the Epic of Gilgamesh, really, the floods. Their efforts to create floods. The Lord was the one that brought the great floods. It's the Lord that does the Lord sort of showing through the scriptures that He's the one. But man can do his part, but the Lord will always outdo man. For those that missed it, where's it gone now? Here we go. This is what. So put this one on ancient Egypt and the Nile, and then this is a recent one taken from the International Space Station as well, just to show the scale of that river and how it was done. And all these temples, all moved. Lots of them moved out the way as the waters would come through and flow into the flood the area. So we've got in Ezekiel, therefore thus saith the Lord God, behold, I will bring a sword upon thee and cut off man and beast from thee, and the land of Egypt shall be desolate and waste, and they shall know that I am the Lord, because he hath said, the river is mine, I have made it. Behold, therefore I am against thee and against thy rivers, and I will make the land of Egypt utterly waste and desolate, from the tower of Cyrene even to the border of Ethiopia. So just remember, as we go through, the river is the Lord's, and things are going to happen, consequences are going to come about from these places. Ethiopia, Cyrene are going to be laid waste. Syene means an opening key. Up here, Ethiopia down here, Abu Simbal along there as well, that's moved out of the way. Ethiopia means Cush, or the black countenance, as in, it can mean like the scorched earth or the richness of the soil, like with the Coptics as well. Son of man, set thy face against Pharaoh, king of Egypt, prophesy against him and against all Egypt. The Lord came to me saying, and one of them here, we're going to look at it, or a few of them, is evaporation of the salt water, so it's not flowing through the same, so the heat's on it, the water becomes more salty, that has an effect on the fish, there's no flooding, so they replace the silt with fertilisers, they have to pump instead of the natural cycle that the Lord's put in place. It drains off into the canals, takes worms with it, and it would no longer run dry for any period, which would kill them. So in the past, where it would dry out, that would kill lots of the parasites. But now it's wet and damp, a bit like when you have mould somewhere and dampness, and things start to grow. In the context of its day, it was these scriptures all had relevance then as well, in the fact of there were judgment upon Assyria. So it's the Lord's judgment. Let's go on. So I hope you enjoyed the introduction. No. Sorry. All right. The pride of man. Made it for myself. Put hooks in the jaws, and I will cause the fish of the rivers to stick to the scales, and bring out the midst of thy rivers, and all the fish in thy rivers shall stick to the scales. When you dam things up, they have an effect. And the effect was Turn the rivers far away, the brooks and the trenches shall be emptied and dried up, the reeds and the flags shall wither, the paper reeds and the brooks and the mouth of the brooks, everything sown by the brook shall wither and be driven away and be no more. The fishing industry was decimated after that. The annual irrigation that would deposit that fertiliser was gone, so then they had to buy in fertiliser to try and naturally get the ground going, and it's salty as well, which is not ideal. Also as well, one of the other unintended consequences was the bricks. So for thousands of years, made bricks out of clay. We know from the Egyptians, when Israel, the Hebrews were in bondage there, making the bricks for thousands of years, that had stopped. That industry sort of was a lot less. The Egyptians used in that 6,000 years making building bricks, sun-dried, kiln-dried, and all that came, mud brick industry, large employment, used to employ 300,000 people, had 12,000 kilns. By 1980, it was looking at alternative sources of materials for brick making. All these gone. A few verses down, the fishers shall mourn, and they shall cast the angle into the brooks and lament, and they shall spread the nets upon the waters and shall languish. Moreover, they that work in fine flax and they that weave network shall be confounded, and they shall be broken in the purposes thereof, and all that make sluices and ponds for fish. In 1970, it says that the building of the dam has killed off the sardine industry. The World Food Agriculture Association minted coins to help raise money for people who lost their jobs due to the industry's collapse. And I could read the figures out: 30,000 tonnes that have dropped, dropped significantly straight after. So you've got the one hand where it's all fantastic, and the other hand of the consequences. Sometimes religion looks a little bit like that as well. All great, but what's the actual takeaway, if you like? Dinner time soon. Then we get to this one, which is the cycle. So you go into the water, the snails get into your skin, and it's a terrible disease, really. Scriptures say, we might get to it, but it just says it takes the strength out of you completely, just completely draining, swells up. It's worms in the stomach that swell up. And this again came in, that in the past they were killed off by the heat. Heat's a good thing for killing things off. We used to have an oven that was a self-cleaning oven, and I didn't realise it. I put pizza in one day, and there's smoke coming out of the oven. And I said, "What's the smoke?" I was cooking that night, and the smoke, and I couldn't turn it off. It goes up to 900 degrees. So it got these crispy things out after a while. But what it does is it cleans the oven by turning up the heat. And that's really when we're in prayer, I suppose. It's like, turn up the heat, and it burns up the chaff. And that's exactly what the sun was doing to these. Don't want to get them inside of you. And unintended the end of the royal line as well, within Egypt. They were not to know that the sediment would, and the evaporation, and the pushing of those things without knowing the consequences. Just drive me mad. So loss of industry, poverty, broken, and fell like a drunkard. How say ye unto Pharaoh, I am the son of the wise, the son of the ancient kings? How can you say that when this is the consequences? Where are they? Where are the wise men? Let them tell me now what the Lord of hosts has purposed in Egypt. The princes of Zoan have become fools. The princes of Noph are deceived. They have seduced Egypt, that they are to stay of the tribes thereof. So again, the consequences nearly at the end now. Last few. Judah shall be a terror unto Egypt, and everyone that maketh mention thereof shall be afraid in himself because of the counsel of the Lord of hosts, which is determined against it. So at war, it's defensive wars as well that Israel have fought against them. And Egypt, Syria, go to war with Israel, and again, so you've got the 6-Day War in 1967, and then 1973 in October, Egypt, Syria, go to war. And that was the one where this guy, Moshe Dayan, he had a if you read anything sort of around the subject, he had like a white flag, and he was writing out, everyone leave, get out the country, it's all over. And the Prime Minister at the time, 70-year-old lady, Golda Meir, dragged him by the scruff of the neck, dragged him out and wouldn't let him surrender. But it's just to know that relationship, as it goes on towards the end. That's what we're looking towards. Another consequence was 90,000 Nubians in the south had to be relocated. They've been living in Egypt, and they had to move about 30 miles away. The Sudanese had to move nearly 400 miles away. They shall be take away her multitude, and the foundation shall be broken down. Pain shall be in Ethiopia. Again, more consequences. They also that uphold Egypt shall fall, and the pride of the power shall come down. From the tower of Cyrene shall they fall in it by the sword, saith the Lord. Egypt as well at the time, I think it's Jeremiah, he said it's like leaning on a broken flax. When you snap a stick and you lean on it, it gives you a bit of support, but it hurts and it pierces. And that's really where they'd gone. In ancient times, the Lord said through Jeremiah, go to Babylon and just work on your time there. And they didn't. They were looking at the power of Egypt, the strength of the horses, the power there. And we're getting to that 70, 80 year period now after Israel has been set up. It's also Jeremiah 29, he says, seek ye the peace of the city wherewith I've caused you to be carried away captives. Pray to the Lord. And it's the time, 70-year prophecy, where Jeremiah was reading Daniel, and he got the inspiration to say, right, these are the times we're in. This is what I have to do to move forward. And we read the scriptures having an inkling, not that we know all the details, but we're having an inkling, and we know that the Lord's coming back. We don't know the detail, but we can read the same scriptures and be encouraged in our time now. So I'm nearly finished. If this will work. No. There we go. So again, relationship with Egypt. It's not particularly good. This is the war between Gaza and Egypt, as I'm sure we've seen, and the tunnels then going under. And Matthew 24. This is cross-referenced with Isaiah as well. Nation shall rise against kingdom, kingdom against kingdom, famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. One of the things that comes after war, as we've seen, is famine, because they decimate the land as well. And there was earthquakes as well. The size of the Aswan Dam, and the amount, if you think about the amount of soil that was moved, there were, in one of the notes I've got here at random, it shows that there was a lot of earthquakes just after that time as well that had been caused. So that's up to each of us to decide. Have a look through, ourselves. Just have a look at the correlations. But we see the result of listening to man, a bit like we heard this afternoon. But better to put our trust and confidence in the Lord. The Lord created that. He knows how we work. He knows how things are put together, and he gives us advice. And time and again through the Bible, we read of the consequences of people who just pushed it away and said, not for me, I'll go this way, I'll go that way. And to finish, you shall receive the gift. This is the prophecy of prophecies, isn't it? Tongues. And then we could look at the same thing with Pentecost, with Sinai, with the wind, with the correlation and the movement. That's the one we go to, as we've just been talking to people in the break, receiving the gift of the Holy Ghost, speaking in other tongues, having the evidence that goes with us. Save yourselves from this untoward generation. There's war, nation, famine, all that sort of stuff. And the Lord has given everyone on the planet a way out, and it's through his Son. And I'll leave it there. Amen.